So, friends, good morning on a Saturday and in the Puja week, which is there in India now. And we have a great, audience today, all raring and all waiting to listen to the three authors and policymakers, civil servants who have been working, assiduously for the last, few years. In 2020, the big thing which came around in the month of July was the New Education Policy 2020, and that was brought under the leadership of Mrs. Anita Karwal, IS. She was the Education Secretary. And following the New Education Policy, about 6-7 months later in 2021, around in the month of March, they came up with another very interesting policy, which was a supplement to the main NEP, which is called the NIEPP, which is the National Innovation and Entrepreneurship Promotion Policy. So these two things came, and this was the teamwork of the three people who are there with me. So a warm welcome to Mrs. Anita Karwal, who agreed to be part of the panel today. Warm welcome to Rajneesh Kumar, who was Director in Ministry of Education, and a very warm welcome to Rashi Sharma, again Director in Ministry of Education. And all three of them, there's a great reason why they are here. Last few months, I kept on getting these nice pop-ups on my social platform that there's a book which is coming up, and the book has finally gotten out, and this is called The Power of Curiosity. And I had no chance to listen to Mrs. Anita Karwal about a few months back at NPSC, where she gave a flavor of how they have written the book. And now that the book is finally out, we really thought that in YOUTHIDEATHON, we engage with the authors now of this book called Power of Curiosity and talk to us about building curiosity inside classroom. So without much ado, I hand over this floor to all three of them.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji. I'm so sorry about this disruption in my camera. Am I clearly audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay. So good morning to all of you. It's such a pleasure to interact with the education community, always. What we are going to do right now in the coming 30 minutes is that we will take you through about 50 slides about why we feel that curiosity has the power to transform education. I'll request Rajneesh to actually start the slides while I'll be speaking, if that's all right.
Yes, so that works. Rajneesh, you'll share the slides.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to share. There's another
hitch.
Another hitch. I don't know what it's saying.
This is what we call disruption.
Which is fine. If you can share it with me on in any form, then I'll upload it.
Just a minute, sir. I tested it, but it was working, but now I don't know what happened.
That's okay.
So it's okay. I've sent it to you on WhatsApp. You see, if I can open, I'll open it here, sir.
Okay, I will. Yeah, I've got on WhatsApp. I'm just downloading it. Great. Just let me share. So,
yes,
friends, audience, where there's will, there's ways, and the screen is finally up for you. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Is my voice echoing? Because I can hear it echo here.
A bit of echo is there. I think there are devices, but there are two devices at your end, perhaps, ma'am. But one is mute. So I think you can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to take you through is some ideas that we have used for writing this story about the power of curiosity. And these are the central ideas, not only of this book, but also of the National Education Policy and the recently released NCFSE, National Curriculum Framework for School Education. So we'll go to slide 1. When I had a chat with Sanjeev about a week back, and we were discussing what should be discussed in this meeting, we came to the conclusion that we work around 4 or 5 simple ideas, and we talk about the what, the why, and the how about those central ideas, and that's exactly what we have done here in these slides. Next slide, please. So we will talk about these 5 central ideas, which figure in our book, which figure in NEP, which figure in NCF. So the first idea is about nurturing curiosity, which the book is all about. The book is also about skill-based education and collaboration. We'll also talk about interconnectedness and the paradigm shift in assessment. Next, please. To begin with, we talk about curiosity. Now, why have we focused on this one important skill, value, and disposition? Scientifically, it is known that dopamine is released every time a child is curious and the child's curiosity is fostered. If the child's curiosity is ignored, then this dopamine and other feel-good chemicals are not released. Therefore, curiosity is something which helps survive because the feel-good chemicals are good for the immunity of the body, the growth and development of the body. That's number 1. Number 2, there is immense amount of research to show that the beginning of engagement with learning is curiosity. So unless a child is curious to know about what the child is about to receive in the classroom, it is very difficult to continue engagement. Third, the NCF and the NEP talk about one most important skill which the child should get out of school with. So that is learning how to learn. If that skill is available in the child's basket of skills, then the child becomes a lifelong learner, and that is exactly what the NEP aims to do at the end of the day. Curiosity also makes us happier. It's very important for our mental health and well-being. The most important aspect of curiosity is the ability to not only be curious about things around us, but also curious about others' point of view, about diversity, about all kinds of differences. And that helps a child become more empathetic and more tolerant of different perspectives. So a curiosity nurturing approach, therefore, is a learner-centric approach. And as Rajneesh would always like to put it, the upcoming regime of AI computers and robots can take over all functions of the human body, perhaps even reasoning. But curiosity is something they will never be able to take over. Next. So there is a very interesting research done by Todd Kashdan in 2017, which gives 5 dimensions of curiosity, and each of these dimensions are represented in our book. So these 5 dimensions are, firstly, joyous exploration, in which a person is so fascinated with things, situations, events, ideas around her that she is always in wide-eyed wonder and curious about it. And that is what our protagonist QB is all about. The second dimension is a need to know based curiosity, where a person feels very uncomfortable in case there is some knowledge that the person does not have, which the person requires to deal with a particular situation. And curiosity of this person leads her to fix it and to fill that gap. So this is a need to know curiosity. The third kind is the social curiosity. You know, in our previous generation, when there was hardly any social media, maximum entertainment was through radio and perhaps through television. It's social curiosity which helps the fabric of society to continue to progress and to develop. When you want to know more about people, persons, families, etc., want to know more about what makes that person laugh, what makes that person smile, how can I help the person? That is called social curiosity. The fourth dimension is the thrill-seeking curiosity, where every new or exciting experience, which even involves a great amount of risk, is something that you look forward to. And every time there is anxiety, it feeds your curiosity. So in our book, Frontal, Techie, and Bully, these are the three characters, aside from many others, which represent it. While the social curiosity is represented by all the classrooms, which are the narrators. And the need to know is of some of the teachers in the book. When you'll read it, you will realize. The last one, which I find most interesting because it is relevant for teachers, and most teachers fall in this bracket, are accepting the anxiety curiosity. So every time a child asks a question, a curious question, and wants to obtain a new experience, you have some amount of anxiety and some amount of discomfort, but you tolerate it and you don't allow it to hold you back from fostering that curiosity. That is the accepting the anxiety curiosity, which we find the protagonist butterfly teacher in our book. Next, please. So this was the what. Now how? How does QB, the QB is the protagonist of our book. QB stands for QB, that is question box. She represents the quintessential child. The previous slide is. And what this book, we call the book QB, the three of us call it QB in short. So what QB suggests about culturing or nurturing curiosity, first and foremost, is for the purpose of socio-emotional learning, we have to normalize fear and anxiety inside the classroom. Children should be able to understand that fear is a normal thing. Anxiety is a normal thing. Not having the confidence is a normal thing. Even low self-esteem is a normal thing. We can work on this. Secondly, as I like to say, we have to encourage mistakes. So there is research which was done in 2015, which is called the error positivity research, which talks about a portion of the cortex, that is a part of the brain, which actually registers mistakes. So every time a child makes a mistake, something called error negativity is registered within a few milliseconds in this part of the brain. And immediately this part of the brain starts responding, trying to tell the child how to behave to respond to this mistake, how to ensure that a mistake has been recognized, now we need to rectify it. And that is called the error positivity response. That gets built up over time only if the child is allowed to make mistakes. If the child is not allowed to make mistakes, as an adult, the child will never acknowledge that they have made a mistake. Okay, at this point of time, they have to say sorry to somebody, or at this point of time, they have to correct the decision that they have taken, etc. And the child becomes a person who is very difficult to work in a team. Then QB also suggests unstructured sessions. So every time what we do in school is that we have a timetable, we follow it. But QB suggests that every day, particularly in the younger ages, say classes 1 to 5, If there is an unstructured session where children can ask any amount of questions, can delve into their curiosity, do their research, do experimentation, do surveys, etc., it helps child build upon the skill of curiosity. QB also suggests that proper structured planning is also required for free-flowing thought. So if you have, for example, a project-based learning where you have laid down the rubrics, that these are the rubrics on which we will observe you, then the children understand it, and even within that, there can be free-flowing of thought. And especially if the rubrics are devised in consultation with children, it is much more easier for children to get the flow. And lastly, QB suggests how to contextualize the boring stuff. By contextualizing, I mean bringing real life examples to show how the boring stuff are actually very interesting. And in the end, as you see, I've written that boredom is a product of ignorance, not of knowledge. Next. Now come to the second magical intervention that we have talked about in QB. In this, I will touch upon the second as well as the third, that is skill-based education and collaboration. Now, why? Why do we need to get into this? Please, the next, please stay here. So far, the regime has been that we try and complete textbooks because all exams will be based on textbooks. So we do not have a learner-centric education or a teacher-centric education or an education-centric education. We have textbook-based or textbook-centric education. Now look to the disruptions. Just now we have been through 18 minutes of disruption of technology. We have through the disruption of a pandemic. Society is being disrupted. If you have read the newspapers today, the LGBTQ community is asking for rights of marriage. So this is how society is also changing a great deal. Clothing is changing, food is changing, and the way we learn is changing. If as teachers we expect that students are learning only inside the classroom, we have to do away with such ideas. Actually, children are learning all the time with the help of the internet, social media, society, television, at home, in the kitchen, with their peers, siblings, family members, relatives, all the time they are learning, and we have to learn to accept that. And children will require specific skills for the society and the whole global transformation that is happening. And these specific skills are very different from the skills that so far we have managed to do with. They need real world experience, and they need, each child needs to have their own unique, innovative and creative abilities. And unless the child is a team person and has collaboration skills, the child will find it difficult to exist in society and in a group. And similarly, the child needs communication skills. What also the NEP and the NCF point out that every child has unique skills which need to be nurtured. Therefore, textbooks and syllabus may be the guiding factors. But please remember that these are tools. The textbooks are only one of the tools that we use for learning. And skill-based learning can be learned not just from the textbooks, but from very diverse TLM. Next. Now come to the how. Now, skill-based education in QB has been dealt with through the following. Firstly, an immense amount of student and teacher agency is exhibited in the book, in the story. By student agency, I would like to give examples where the teacher actually asks the students to actually choose their own project. What project do you want to do? Now, here are the areas from which you can choose, and then the children choose. By teacher agency, it is the kind of pedagogy that she unleashes in the classroom is totally teacher dependent. It has nothing to do with what the school believes in or what the NCF advocates or what the NEP says. It's all about what is the requirement at that moment in her classroom with the given set of children. Second thing that QB talks about is hands-on learning. In the entire book, you will find this, how a rural school, which barely has any resources and doesn't even ask for any resources, with whatever it has, it teaches through learning by doing, by activity-based, storytelling-based, research. In class 1, children are doing research and project-based learning. The third point I would like to labor upon, and that's why it's put in capital, humor is something which will bring a whole lot of engagement in learning. We have forgotten the skill of humor. We've become so serious because we want to complete the concerned topic or the chapter. We forget to bring in humor inside the classroom. It's not only teachers who bring in humor, it's the children as well. That humor has to have a scope in the classroom. It is one of the best, in fact, the most technical communication skill. It's one of the most difficult communication skills. But once acquired, it is the best communication skill, which both teacher and students must nurture. QB also talks about extreme engagement with parents and community. And this I suggest read the book, how we have suggested this through very innovative methods. QB suggests peer learning and problem solving approach. But problem solving approach has to be based on real world problems. Of course, environmental awareness is one of them, but there could be so many. Let me give you an example. When my daughter was in class 6 in a school in Gujarat, she took leave for about 10 days because I had to go to London to do a course, and she came along with me. When she went back, of course, we had spoken to the principal and told her, and the principal encouraged her and said that whatever you see and learn in London, you come back and present to the children of the class. But she went to the class said, you never informed us, you never told us. We would like to have a meeting about how we are going to punish you or decide on your future. And then the children sat together and talked about the whole issue, whether she should have been allowed to go for 10 days during a school session. Do you think she would have learned? Okay, if it was a good learning experience, then well, was it worth it? Should she have informed her closest friends, etc.? And after 15-20 minutes of discussion, the punishment that she was given was that she cannot give an oral presentation. She has to give a photographic and a video presentation. And of course, my child really enjoyed it. I'm just talking about these small things where children get together, consider something a problem, and they solve it. It nurtures their creative and innovative abilities also. Harvard University has done a research where they have established that the lack of connection to the real world is the major cause of lack of skill-based learning in education. And if we are able to understand this connection, skill-based learning will happen automatically. Next, please. Now, coming to collaboration. For collaboration, it's very important that the groups that are formed or buddy pairs that are formed, their goals and expectations are made clear. And these groups will become vibrant only if there are some challenging learning activities or discussions that are happening, and only if dissent is allowed. So this is something which QB discusses at length through actual progress in the story. In QB, we have also delved on the seating plan in the class, how the classroom itself decides the seating plan, and how it turns out to be one of the greatest contributors to their learning. We speak about peer learning, touched earlier also, and a lot of group work, and how in the group work, the entire class, 30 of them, have unique roles. Recently, some of you may be a part of that group. There is a group which is working on education with monuments in CBSE. And we were discussing in that group, and then one school said that, we have chosen 6 students who will help us with this. And then I had a discussion with them on the group that why have you chosen 6 students? Why not an entire class? And the response, of course, was that, because you do a good job. Why do we assume that the entire class will not do a good job? Every child has unique capabilities. Let us take a case, a project. Let us say a class has been asked to put up an exhibition. We tend to pick up those children who are our favorites, who can draw, who can do good things, who can organize, and tell them to do the work. But there will be other children who may observe, who may do photography of the whole process, or who may just do the running around, or if nothing else, they are good with the food stalls, with direction, or providing the music, background music, etc. So every child can have a role, and that is what we have tried to show. We've also shown how important it is to collaborate with the local community. Next. Coming to the next point, interconnectedness. With the Industrial Revolution, in education, 2 things happened. One was the K-12 Prussian model, which we follow, which is the factory model of learning, which is called the cell and bell learning. Put the children inside a cell or a classroom, and with every bell, they are expected to behave in a particular way. The other thing that happened was that specialized discipline started coming in. Before that, there was no such specialization. And because of which, the real world relevance of an interconnected form of learning was lost. So interconnectedness is required for the holistic understanding. And interconnectedness is something which leads to transferable skills, which means that, for example, let us take environmental studies. Okay, so if a child has studied environmental studies, which is an interdisciplinary form of study, and has developed critical thinking skills, the child is able to transfer this critical thinking to several other aspects of life and disciplines. It also, interconnected also leads to better understanding of a very complex problem. If we look at a problem from only one perspective, it becomes very difficult to actually undertake any kind of practical exercise. And it leads to lifelong learning and nurturing of curiosity and creativity. Next. So what do we mean by interconnectedness? We mean that there are disciplinary boundaries, and these are artificial. We mean that knowledge is mutually interconnected, and once we realize this, we get a better understanding, which is 360 degrees into perspective. It does not mean forced connections. It is not necessary that if there's no connection, we still have to draw a connection. It does not mean sequencing the progression, but it means connecting everything to your prior knowledge and to the real life and to the possibilities of the future. For example, when we are teaching driving or cycling, we teach everything about it. For example, if a student learns only driving and there is a tire puncture, the student ought to have learned that. The student also ought to learn about mileage, fuel cost, where to get the fuel, how old is the vehicle when you're buying it, etc., etc. Now, many schools have already mapped the entire syllabus for one grade in this manner, where they have interconnected all the subjects being taught in a grade into small groups, and they're teaching it as an interconnected or multidisciplinary area. So this is something which schools can do. There is a very famous saying, and I love to put it, neurons that fire together, fire together. So as you're aware, the brain has several neuron cells. When they connect each other, they're called synapses. Every connection that happens leads to greater cognitive abilities. So when the neurons are firing together, then they will remain wired together for a longer time. Next. Now, what do we show in QB about multidisciplinarity, disciplinary learning? Right from the beginning, we have used car. You know, there is an unused car lying outside the school, which the children are very curious about. So the principal brings it inside the school campus. And then they start learning science, language, maths, social science, every aspect from the car. And this is how, as you can see in the bubble, for example, from the body of the car, they learn about metals, paints, how car affected society, how it affected women, for example, how women became empowered when cars came out, how it affected the factory model of assembly line, you know, labor, job, what was the technology, how it has progressed over the years, how we have come to driverless cars, then about human comfort, plastic versus wood, etc., the concept of light and optics, engines. So as you can see, you will see in the book how each of these is taught in a stage-wise manner. So for a grade 1 child, there would be something which is at a grade 1 level, which can be taught through the help of the car. Whereas for a grade 8, it would be something else. And you can read about it in next. So it is possible to have multidisciplinary learning from so many things around us, and especially technology, because we have to accept the reality of technology. So it is possible to learn from, you know, from a mobile, for example. You can learn about maths, battery, materials, sound, GPS, camera, fingerprint, so many topics. Next. And similarly, any other area can be picked up, such as the rivers Ganga, Yamuna, or the Himalaya, or the computer, or the natural ecosystem, or genes, DNA, etc. And from these, all the disciplines can actually be taught. And since these are real life examples, children will actually love to engage with these kind of ideas. Next. The last is assessment learning. I don't need to labor on this, but we need to understand that both the NEP and the NCF have actually brought this as the centrality of assessment. So understanding that assessment is just one of the many milestones in the growth and development of a child is really important. So far, we have been treating assessment as the all and be all of the education system. So on the one hand, there are textbooks which are to be completed. On the other hand, there are assessments which have to be done about the textbook, and we feel education is completed. What the NEP and the NCF says is that assessment is just one of the tools to gauge the child's learning. And it should be used only for the purpose of learning. Learning is the centrality, and assessment is one of the tools. So in assessment for learning, it is all about giving constructive feedback. So every time we do a formative assessment, we give a constructive feedback to the child, and the child betters their process of learning. That is what is assessment for learning. And not only that, the teacher also keeps adjusting her pedagogy and her lesson plans in accordance to the requirement of the class. Next. In QB, there is a chapter where we talk about the 4 commandments. And these are related to assessment. And these are slightly different from what you may have read in the NEP or the NCF, but frankly, they are absolutely related and they're derived from there. The first commandment is that the process is more important than the result. It is the process that the child is undertaking, the effort that the child is putting in, the manner in which the child is learning. That is much more important than whether the final result, as required by a summative assessment, for example, has been arrived at or not. So during the process, unless the child gets support, the results may or may not be as per your requirement. Second point, that if feedback is being offered, it must always be offered. Then it should be offered about the work or the behavior, but not describing the child. You're a good boy, you're a bad girl, you're a bully, you are useless. No, it's about the work. You know, here you could have done this. This would help you go to this. Or, you know, this, if you are going to be nice, then perhaps you should bring flowers to make your friend. So something like that. We know about child psychology, and feedback should be offered only in this manner. Even for assessment, feedback should never be offered by telling the child, you are weak, you are an average student, you're a bad student. The third commandment is that it is our job to ensure that we help the child make connections. Every time the child is responding to a formative assessment or even a summative assessment, we need to ensure that the child is able to see the larger connections, the larger picture, the holistic picture. Fourthly, collaboration in assessment is really important. So if there are groups which are sitting together, assessment should be given to the group. Let them discuss, make noise, argue over it, debate over it, and come to a conclusion. This will prevent mindless competition. The future is not about individuals, it's about teamwork. And we need to introduce teamwork through collaboration in assessment. Of course, teachers will ask that if there's collaboration, how will we know whether an individual child has done well or not? Well, for that, there are rubrics which you inform the children and you tell them that each one of them will be assessed on each of these rubrics. And lastly, though this is not a commandment, we have really labored on this in our book, that self-assessment is magical. It is transforming for the learner and for the progress of the learner in achieving learning outcomes. Next. So our book, in the end, just slides, I would like to mention that the book is about two protagonists, QB and Frontal. QB is the quintessential child who's always curious, and QB stands for question box. Frontal is the classroom itself and the narrator. There are 8 classrooms named after brain parts, and each of them act exactly like the brain part that they represent. Frontal is full of humor. Temporal is all about language. Parietal is all about new perspectives. Amygdala has a great memory. So all of these you will find represent the brain parts of a human being. We've tried to make the book interesting through the, the banter of the classrooms. And CAR is used as a learning ecosystem, as I mentioned earlier. This is what the book is all about. It is also about teaching and learning without too many resources. Next slide. And this is the last slide. So the book is about this, that there can be less curriculum, but it should be more in depth. We have to move from less content to more skills and competencies. Content is not the king. It is skills and competencies which are the king. We have to move from textbooks to more diversified content. There should be less lecturing, one-way lecturing in the class, and more encouraging of curiosity. Classes can be a little less structured, a little more random. It has to be less individualistic, more teamwork, less teacher-led assessment, more self-impaired assessment. And instead of focusing on the commonalities of the whole class, we need to also focus on the uniqueness and nurture the uniqueness of every child. And finally, with less silos and more interconnections, there will be less stress and more joy. Thank you very much. The last slide is a thank you slide, and we can close from thank you.
You are mute, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
In this
So
slide, as you can see, we are 3 co-authors. Rajneesh is here. Rajneesh was my director there and looking after FCF. Rashi was also my director, looking after FP. And together we have done a lot of work in the area of Nipun Bharat, Diksha, innovations, lot of other work too. Thank you.
right, ma'am. So this was fantastic, and I absolutely loved everything. Before I make the floor open to all to ask questions, I really want, and because I have the slide with me, so I have the liberty of playing with it. I really want to go to this slide, the second last slide, and just to talk about this, all the things which are mentioned here. I think YOUTHIDEATHON has a very strong tick in the box on all the items which you have listed. So less curriculum, more in depth, less content, more skills, more fun, more connections, more on uniqueness, more on self-impaired assessment, and that's the kind of ecosystem that YOUTHIDEATHON platform has been building. That was from me. I stopped sharing the screen, and friends, everyone now has the power to unmute themselves. If anyone has any question, you can, if you raise your hand, we go, in the order of that priority. So we have a system in place. Anyone who wants to ask questions to the authors of this book, The Power of Curiosity, or how to build curiosity inside a classroom. And there were lots of strategies out there in the book, but over to the educators. So Utkarsh Mishra, over to you. Utkarsh, you can unmute. Okay, Utkarsh, somehow it seems that Utkarsh, you can unmute yourself.
They can also write their questions in the chat box.
Yeah, or you can write your question in the chat box. Friends, if you have any question, please do write in the chat box. And meanwhile, while you are thinking about the question, okay, Utkarsh, it was by accident, but if you are thinking about questions, ma'am, while there were number of strategies, right, I'm coming to the most tricky bit, which now I'm discovering more and more. And this is what you flagged, is what you flagged was about assessments, right? And one of the things which now I am realizing is education system today with NEP and with NCF, it's moving in a step forward, right? There's a child who's very ready, gets a lot of knowledge from all forms of interaction in society. And we have teachers who there's a lot of onus on teachers to stick to curriculum and to finish the curriculum. And this is, I'm saying now that I've been interacting with the school teachers. And then we have a set of stakeholders called parents who are saying marks, marks, marks. How should educators deal with this?
So Sanjeev, I will talk about it and maybe Rajneesh will add to it. And I can also see a question that if I have a 50-minute class,
Yeah.
how do I give opportunity to each and every child? I think these are both linked.
Yes. So, ma'am, you
Yes.
you take your pick.
Yeah. So with regard to assessment, like I like to say, the factory model, which I just mentioned, उसमें बड़ा interesting था. It was based on the assembly line that was developed during the Industrial Revolution. So what happens is you put the raw product from one side, and then it has to undergo certain standardized, uh, work on it. It goes from here to here, it becomes this, and then it becomes this, and then it becomes that. And you're just standing in a line. At the end, you have a finished product. Our present education system is exactly that. So we consider the child as a raw product. We apply standardized learning processes to the child and expect the child to come out as the common raw product that everybody else is. And we apply assessment accordingly, which means standardized assessment. Even a fish and an elephant, both are asked to climb a tree, right? So this
Yeah.
is what is happening in the present system. In
Yes.
the NCF and the NEP, the mindset change is something that would become the beginning of the implementation for assessment further. And mindset change, parents are going to say that all the time because it has to begin with the teachers. Our teachers themselves are not convinced. Look at this question. In a 40 minutes class, we give opportunity to each and every child. This teacher is facing difficulty because every classroom is standardized 40 minutes. The school management has not ever thought that can we make it pre-lunch English and post-lunch mathematics today? So the teachers are constrained by these standards which are being set on them. And the teacher's mindset and the management mindset has to change together for this.
Right.
And unless the management mindset changes, teacher mindset changes, parents are not going to be influenced.
Yeah. So build flexibility in scheduling or timetabling, right?
Yes.
That could be one of the practical steps that schools or educators can take.
It's not just one of the practical steps. It is the step which needs to be taken.
Right.
And also, we need to understand that the focus now is out of textbooks on competencies. The NCF has very clearly stated it is the competencies that the child has to achieve, whether the child achieves through textbooks or through television or through social media or through role play or project-based learning, it doesn't matter. It's the competencies which are important.
Yeah. So, Rajneesh, would you like to add?
No, I think ma'am has covered everything. Our whole thought was that if we can build curiosity into the structured curriculum, then things can, happen the right way. The curious child also gets marks, because right now the problem is that curious child does tend to lose marks. It will take a long time. It will not just come in a year or so. It will take 3, 4 years, 5 years maybe. But we actually have to begin at some point in time. And moreover, you see, even if we don't change, the world will force us to change, because in the next 20 years, disruption in job market is so severe that you may be a doctor. At the end of 20 years, you find that you're no longer relevant to the world. So this skill has to come right now to the child, to be curious, to be able to relearn, to be able to unlearn. Thank you.
And I also want to add one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we continue to teach in one way, one pedagogy, which is chalk and board or showing slides and discussing it, one-way lecture, then the multiple intelligences, as asked by Mr. Ankit Desai, not get addressed. So the teacher's pedagogy has to be constantly innovative. Today I have storytelling based pedagogy. Tomorrow I have role play pedagogy. Next day I have some kind of experiential learning with the help of my 5 senses. So what happens is this way, all multiple intelligence get addressed through different pedagogies. They will find themselves comfortable somewhere or the other, and the engagement begins.
Yeah. So
And
on the
sir,
same vein, we have a question, Rajneesh, what you were speaking from K. Madhavi. She says that students are all very unique, their intellectual capacities are different. How do we create curiosity in diverse class and balance with time? This is what for all three of you to take.
Rajneesh and Rashi.
Rashi, would you like to say? Rashi?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to interact with all of you. So yes, I agree to that there are 30 to 40 students in each class, and and they have different capacities. They are at different level. So how do a teacher tackle to that? That's a very practical problem. But in our book, what we have propagated is that you should not rebuke the curiosity of any child. You allow them to ask questions. You allow your pedagogy to evolve in such a way that you can involve all children, depending upon their capacities and unique talents. That is why we are saying that this traditional kind of a method where you are giving a lecture, or you are teaching them a particular lesson, might not work. Because if you have project based learning, if you have peer group learning, you can tackle all these problems. These traditional methods would not be able to actually solve your problems. And the competencies which ma'am has talked about is exactly the way, I mean, you can achieve it by all these innovative methods of pedagogy. Because competencies are to be achieved as per NCF in a certain stage. So you have to basically go for new, unique approaches. I mean, there is no set pattern for that. It has to be a basket of innovative pedagogies. I think that can solve your problem. Thank you.
So if I can chip in, and with the permission of all the esteemed panelists, right? And I'm, while Rachi was speaking, one thing which came to my mind is the inherent conflict in any operation design. So this is school operation design, and there's one axis is structure and there is flexibility. If you want too much of structure or you want too much of flexibility, and every school and education system has to find their balance. What perhaps I think, right, is for a mass model of education to build in a kitchen model of education where there's a lot of flexibility and structure, instead of a factory model of kitchen which has only sandwich. No, so if your kitchen is not only making sandwiches, but is able to make a variety of sandwiches and pastas and dosas and all those sort of stuff. So basically, the school operation design is something that we have to really look at. Maybe. What do you, over to you to,
and just add one more line, that like you are talking about the kitchen, this thing. So we have propagated a horticulture way of education, right? So every plant requires a very specific kind of nurturing.
Yeah. I think horticulture is a great metaphor, right? So
I would just like to come. There is a interesting comment from one ma'am, Rita Paul. To build curiosity, we have just started question of curiosity. It is shared during the first period, and students find, explore, and think about answers. Now here I would like to upturn it. So if we put student agency in this, in the sense we ask students to come out with question of curiosity, rather than teachers giving a question of curiosity and students doing the research, believe me, the engagement will be much stronger. And that is what we have shown in this book.
No, exactly, ma'am. And I think it resonates with a challenge. You put an open-ended thing, right? And across ages, grades, different sorts of responses starts coming in. It's then how our facilitators or teachers take through and build it to engage with everyone inside the classroom. We have a few more interesting questions down. Colonel Prem Prakash, Colonel Saab, great to see you. Six thinking hats. You want to ask your question directly, Colonel Saab? You can unmute.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon, Mr. Shivesh. What I'm saying is that, it has been there in the environment, this thing of curiosity, creativity, and original project-based learning, all those things. But then, I think somewhere we got bound by this syllabus and curriculum, sitting plan, and things like that. And that is where I think even ma'am mentions that how we can possibly break away from the thing and enhance our learning and get the student become an independent learner. So it's happening, though, slowly. And because possibly our society and parents, we are still grade conscious. In fact, just here in this session, we had I think 2-3 people asking about certificates. Yeah, are we going to get certificates at the end of the session? So I think, as mentioned, this mindset has to change. And that is what I'm just sharing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colonel Saab.
And your comment is schools have to break away from the rigidity and CBSE has to support it. So hope that will happen sooner than later. Yes, absolutely right. The board has to be the first to change. Whenever as Secretary School Education, I would interact with my states and the people working in the states, I have always insisted that the mindset of the educational administrator should be the first to change, and then things will change below. We address the mindset of teachers, principals, students, parents, but हम लोग जो यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं ना, मैं Secretary of Education, मेरे नीचे काम करने वाले रजनीश, राशि, state governments, CBSE, state boards, we need to change first. So hopefully, I did try, and I think I have poked it so much that things are the process of change. Mindsets will also follow. CBSE, of course, is apparently doing a lot of work in this area. I have lost touch for the last 8-9 months since I retired. But now that you have put it on the board, I'm going to find out. Thank you.
Ma'am, there are a few questions. There's a student who has asked a question, Utkarsh Mishra. Would you like to take that? Utkarsh.
So I think if Utkarsh's question I can read properly, he says that collaborative learning creates chaos and only students who want to learn. No one is interested in doing something new. So I think that is Utkarsh's Udgar, I would say.
Yeah.
But I think that is the whole basis. You see, chaos is important. And if you look at the principle of entropy, the world is moving towards disorder. So chaos is not bad. The only thing is how much chaos a teacher can afford to have. That is the issue. And the first session of curiosity will be chaos. It will be all absurd questions. Somebody will say Earth is flat. Somebody will say there's something behind the Earth. Somebody will say the moon has only one face. It doesn't even rotate. So all this will happen. So Utkarsh, your Udgar, I can understand. But I think chaos is a good sign in a classroom.
No, absolutely, Rajneesh. And the word which is coming to my mind is initially, Utkarsh, when this sort of change is there it might appear chaotic to some, right? But what the system is trying to do is to create a controlled chaos, right? So with practice, then this, we have controlled chaos where great things happen, right? So this is what I think the authors are saying. And your refrain is okay. It's okay. Get into it, and then you'll start enjoying it. Ma'am, there are a few more questions. Would you like to take?
Yeah, sure.
There is a okay. I'm just going sequentially. If the skill class transforms from hobby class, how can it be measuring students' knowledge and skills? If the skill class transform from, I don't know, Dr. Deepak Mahakul, would you like to ask your question? Dr. Deepak Mahakul, if you are around. Okay.
I think he is confusing between skill-based education and skills and skilling.
Yeah.
So the difference is in skilling, sometimes we talk about a specific certification. For example, skilling for, let us say, horticulture, confectionery, or something like that. When we talk about skill-based education, we are talking about the 21st century skills. So whether they're learning skills like critical thinking, problem solving, communication, creativity, etc., or they are life skills like self-awareness, teamwork, flexibility, adaptability, etc., or they are information skills like information, media, and technical skills, etc. So, how to measure it, as we have shown in QB, it's very important to have very clear goals and expectations right from the beginning. And rubrics is a very good way of measuring. Rubrics which are discussed with the classroom, with the students beforehand, and the children are aware of it. And the rubrics are also used for constructive feedback, for improvement. So that is one very good way of measuring the knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
Sun-
Thank you so much, ma'am. And as we see, there are a lot of skills. Lot of schools I visited and I interact with the teachers. Most of the schools or the organizations, they are focused on which are seen or which are sellable. The skills they like dance or art or something. So there are lot many skills which are we can insist to the children. So that I insist that the curriculum, like you said, very well said, that we have to make the curiosity and there are the categorize the skills in such a way that lot many possibilities can come. Thank you so
right.
much, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
Deepakji, thanks. Sandhya Vengala, would you like to ask your question? Sandhya Vengala, if you're around, Sandhya. Okay, so she has a question. I like to teach always with experiments and activities. Children are able to understand the concept, but finally we are judging children by pen and paper tests only. What I'm facing problem is my school lack of language skills. They are not able to put on the paper. Okay, so I think the question is, while skills are there, most assessments are some sort of a written thing, right? Any comments?
Yeah, so there are two parts to this.
Yes,
one
ma'am.
part I will answer and one part Rashi will. So the first part is about judging only through pen and paper.
Yes.
So the NCF was released about 2 months back. Now what the NCF talks about is stage-wise assessment. For the foundational stage, the assessment, there is no pen and paper. In fact, it is written that it is the most inappropriate form of assessment for the foundational stage. There's only observation. For the preparatory stage, it is formative assessment. And then summative assessment is introduced at the middle stage and goes on board exams later on, but formative assessment continues all through. Okay. So it will take some time for this to be put inside the classrooms because CBSE and other boards, NCRT, etc., have to come out with the circulars and notifications and all that. Hopefully, in the next 8-9 months, it will all come out. So assessment-focused learning is going to change. It's on the verge of changing. With regard to language skills, how important is foundational learning? Since Rashi has been behind this whole movement of Nipun Bharat, etc., I request her to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. And see, NEP 2020, it focuses a lot on achieving the foundational skills by grade 3. And what we mean by foundational skills is not only reading, you have to read with comprehension. If you can't read with comprehension, there is no point. So there is a whole lot of emphasis on learning the language, because if you don't learn the language, you will eventually not understand any other subject, because that is a key to, achieve competencies in maths or in any other subject. So we have emphasized a lot, and in Nipun Bharat, we have given very specific interventions also. Like we are giving a lot of focus on teaching learning materials. So like ma'am has said, that textbooks are not the only resource, it is one of the resources. So we understand that at primary stage, children are required to be, given exposure to various things, various play-based materials, various activities, various, storybooks, various type of teaching learning material, some kind of indigenous, local contextualized material. So Government of India is giving a very focused grant for that purpose. And I would suggest that children who are at early years, who are studying in grade 1, 2, or 3, they should be given there should be a lot of emphasis on reading storybooks, reading some age appropriate texts apart from the textbooks, because this is one skill which is really essential. If we don't do that, children will drop out in later stage. They will not be able to take up the expectations of curriculum in later grades. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rashi. There's a question from Mrs. Amruta Prabhu. Ma'am, can you switch on your camera and want to ask a question?
Hello,
Yes.
am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much to all the panelists for this wonderful session. I was really very looking forward to this, because we are taking up the skill courses in our school very, very seriously. I mean, as educators. But the challenge which we are facing, me and my team are facing, is that we have introduced something as Skilling Saturdays. So 2 Saturdays in a month, we have the children coming in across grade 6 to 12 just for the skill courses. But unfortunately, what we have seen is that the attendance is very, very dismal in this, and we have tried to raise these issues with the student council, with the students per se. They said that, ma'am, we find the courses, and the courses are prescribed by CBSE. They have given a wonderful curriculum to it, but the students find it very uninteresting. Also, I discussed it with the parent community in the PTMs and the PTA association. So they said that they too feel that the children are not very positive of getting up on a Saturday. They prefer enjoying the weekend or taking back it as a laid back weekend. So if I could get some panelists inputs from the experts of how to reverse this, that would help. Thank you so much.
So thank you for your question. Firstly, once again, you're talking about skilling, and we spoke about skill-based education. So skilling, you're talking vocational subjects. So it's one discipline. Of course, there is no silos between disciplines in the DP, but we are talking an entire subject, right? And which you are using Saturdays for the purpose of imparting. Now, for any subject, be it vocational, be it mathematics, language, whatever it may be, real life contextualization is the most important aspect of pedagogy, number one. So if your skilling subjects are all textbook based, based on PPTXs, slides, etc., it is not going to be very engaging. So maybe you have to talk to them about how this is going to lead to better admissions in higher education, how it's going to benefit for their employment in the future, how it is going to help them in the present to deal with real life situations, etc. Perhaps it will become more interesting. And also, since we are at it, even in the vocational subjects, the skilling also has to be skill-based. So if you look at para 4.23 of the NEP, where 18 skills have been listed, that these have to be integrated in everything that is to be taught. So if you integrate, for example, language skills in your vocational, so what is the language of that vocation? How is it across the globe? What is it called in India? What is it called abroad? And why? How did that originate? Then the 18 skills talk about innovation. So can you bring in some kind of project work where they do their own innovation? They come out with they come out with a problem hack with the help of technology, etc. And they come out with their own innovation. So if you integrate skill-based education, even in skilling, it should make it very interesting. Rajnish, would you like to add?
Ma'am, I have just one very practical point. The moment you assign a day to something, it will always be thought of as outside structure. I think you should do it within the 5 days of the week. Then children will maybe get interested, and then maybe their motivation will get them to a Saturday. Because even as a parent, I would not like to send my child on a Saturday after 5 days of grilling at school from say 6:30 in the morning to 3 in the evening. So it's a practical suggestion, ma'am.
Just to support, ma'am, what you have said, actually, I think what sir has also said is rightly, and we are actually giving a lot of emphasis on integrating all this into the curriculum, So you have to it's not something which is separate in our book. I would like to give a particular instance. We have given about music and dance. So, some children do not like a routine kind of a music class or a dance class, they are not interested to join that. So how to make it interesting, and how children can themselves, if they choreograph their dance themselves, they will be definitely very interested. If they are making their own lyrics, they will be very interested. So you have to make that participative, and it should be integrated with the, curriculum. So just to add on that.
No, I think
Thank
Rashi,
you. Thank you.
great addition. To Amruta ma'am, one of the things which I, not as a policymaker expert, what I really think, any change of this nature requires communicate as much as that for any change to happen. So it takes time. It takes time for everyone, and parents have, there will be challenges, but over communication is the best strategy in this case.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for the inputs. Thank you.
Okay, friends, we have one or two questions, but they are endorsing the same stuff. Okay, ma'am, if you want to pick any question which you think we have left, or one last question, if you think.
I think one last one. There is a question by Pallavi Sharma.
Right.
The basic, the idea of curiosity, because it is strongly related to interest. How can we enhance the interest in skill subject? Because they think that skill subject is to get away from tough subject. I want Rajnish to answer this.
Sorry, did you say, ma'am?
Yeah, Rajnish, to you.
Rajnish, if you could answer this.
Well, on this, it's a very strange thing that the school education cannot change unless the higher education has a change in the ecosystem, the job market, the degrees. So it's a tough call. I think I give a small example of physical education. Most of the children studying for the IIT, JEE or NEET used to opt for physical education because it used to fetch very good marks. Suddenly, last 2 years, CBSE is not giving very good marks. So people are switching over to some other subject. This is a constant struggle which everybody will have. It's a practical solution. It's a practical problem. It's not a problem, actually. It's a requirement of the parents, requirement of the children. So that's what we said in the beginning and after the presentation, that you have to build everything into the curriculum in such a manner that it fetches some practical advantage to the child and to the parent. Unless that happens, we can be very idealistic about everything in the world. But the hardcore is we are dealing with 24, 25 crore children, of which half of them are so devoid of the basic necessities of life. For them, marks, a good job, good life is most important than all the philosophy of education. So I mean, it's a tough call. We have to very slowly, gradually progress towards this.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Rajneesh. Ma'am, would you like to add anything?
No, I would just like to say that it's been amazing. I just love connecting with educationists. Even in my present responsibility, which is not in education, I continue to remain associated, and it's always a pleasure interacting. Thank you very much.
Right, friends, with this, we come to the end of today's very engaging session. We had a bit of a delayed start, and sincere apologies to all of you for keeping you waiting, but it was very engrossing. We had insightful questions, and which were opening us all of us up. And there are some practical ways in which we can implement building curiosity into classrooms. The book Power of Curiosity is a great starting point. If any one of you are interested, I would strongly recommend you to go to and read this book, because this has been written in a very nice manner, as you saw, right? So the character and the whole set of things, the brain has 4 or 8 parts, and all those things become the form of the book. So it's an engaging book, but and it goes into the practical ways in which you can bring experiment-based learning, project-based learning, all this collaborative learning, all this sort of stuff. And as we all know, India is under transition. It's work in progress. It's not an end. We still have to do a lot of stuff. And this book is at the right time. We really need support of all educators, teachers like you. And through the Youth Ideathon family, we are all in this together, making a small dent into the universe. With this, we come to an end. Thank you all very much, Anita ma'am. Thank you, Rajneesh. Thank you, Rashi. It was wonderful listening to your insights. Can we give a round of applause to them?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It was insightful, and we would look forward to many more sessions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining on a Saturday morning. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you all. With this, I'll end the Zoom session. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.